This episode is sponsored by Medicine Based Beauty, where beauty is backed by science. Hello, and welcome to Cultivate CNY. I'm your host, Alex Canavan, founder of CNY Women's Network. And on today's episode, I'm going to be sitting down with Kate Flannery, who is the executive director of the Alzheimer's Association here in upstate New York. Kate has dedicated her career to serving the Central New York community in incredible ways. She's worked as the executive director at Syracuse University's Office of Community Engagement Planning, playing a key role in the university's leadership team. Her passion for service also shines through her time as the director of mission outreach and education at Francis House, a community care home here in Syracuse. She's also served as the executive director of the Susan G. Komen organization, leading multiple affiliates across 49 New York counties and making a huge impact on the race for the cure. In this episode, we talk about what drives Kate's passion for community service, the challenges and rewards of nonprofit leadership, and her insights on building lasting, meaningful connections in any organization. Now, I don't want to give too much away, so let's get into it. Well, Kate Flannery, welcome to Cultivate CNY.
Why, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
This is such an exciting conversation. I've known you for a little bit now, but we've never really had time to talk at length one-on-one. So really excited. We're going to cover a lot of ground here today.
Okay.
But first things first, I'm curious because I don't really know a whole lot about your background. How did you get here? What's your story?
Everybody has a story, right? So while my work is really, really important to who I am, I've been very fortunate in that from the time I was 13 years old, I knew that I wanted to be in human services and a social worker. As a child, I was very challenging to my family in the sense that social justice was really important to me. I naturally have a high compassion. And I've always wanted to cultivate that. And then I wanted to combine sort of my critical thinking skills with how to make our community and individuals better and what my role should be in that.
You've always wanted to make an impact.
Always. Always. I just knew I wasn't going to be in sales or do something else. I was drawn to persons often. I guess it's a belief system and a values that I have around respect and dignity that everyone deserves, a curiosity about how systems impact people's experiences and their opportunities, and then how I might combined with who I am as a person, who I am as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter, as a woman of faith, how I make that part of my life in a way that feels authentic and allows for personal growth.
Well, we all kind of build our lives around our priorities, right? So your priority always was sort of impactful work,
Absolutely.
more over anything else, most likely. So did you go to school for social work
Mhm.
or
I'm a licensed social worker. I'm a psychotherapist by training. I started the beginning of my career was working with adults with psychiatric disabilities and doing some vocational rehab. There was a program actually here in Armory Square called Provisions Bakery that I was privileged enough to be part of, which was the first program of its type that was not a sheltered workshop for adults with psychiatric disabilities, but rather a training program. And we were one of the first people in the Armory and with possibilities and Eureka Crafts. And so it was a wonderful experience around really seeing that everybody could contribute. And what made people feel whole was having an identity where they were contributing, and employment was really important to people. It's where they made friends and had relationships. It's where they had a sense of self and community. So I loved that part of my career. And then I had an opportunity to become the executive director of the Rape Crisis Center of Syracuse many years ago in 2005. And that was also, it was a time I was a young mother and I was trying to figure out women's roles and
Mhm.
what it meant for, power and control and how violence worked against women in this community and in our country and in the world. So I learned a lot about trauma and the impact of that and was very fortunate. I've always learned so much from quote unquote my clients because really it's a partnership, right? We are there together to help elevate individual and community experiences. And so I've been so fortunate to be able to learn from that, whether it was sexual assault and domestic violence or breast cancer, which I spent about 15 years in the space of Susan G. Komen and breast cancer and Race for the Cure. Learned so much from cancer patients about how to live.
what was some of the biggest lessons you learned?
It was It was amazing to see people's resilience. You don't know how tough you are until you're forced to be. I learned about the power of support and community, like those who could allow or ask for help or receive it, how much better the outcomes were for them. I learned about vulnerability and how it can transform you into a stronger and braver and more powerful person. And all of that was really with my work with cancer patients, predominantly women who are navigating breast cancer.
Yeah, it's that vulnerability piece that a lot of people get wrong
Hmm.
most of the time.
Yeah, we all wear masks or kind of hide behind things. And sometimes when you're brave enough to really convey what's happening for you and to you, I think there's such power there, right? Not only for yourself to stand firmly in your space and know who you are and what's important to you, but also to connect with others and be of support, right? So like if you think about the journey of a cancer patient, the final part is frequently the fact that they give back, right? That they help others along the way.
Mhm.
That advocacy piece, that piece where they're able to take their personal challenge or tragedies or, um, you know, immense difficulties and use it to assist others. So
Yeah.
that was profound in sort of my development as a human being. And then I'm a mother of 4 kids, so I'm very blessed in that way. Our youngest is a senior at the University of Rochester, Emma, so she'll be graduating in public health. So yeah, I just feel like I've been so blessed to be in Central New York. I love this community. Some of my children have left to go to Manhattan and to Boston, but they now have a new appreciation
Mm.
and consider moving back. Do you know what I mean? And looking for opportunities to do that. Our
Yeah.
beautiful countryside just the community and the strength. So at this point in my career, I work with the Alzheimer's Association. It is a perfect fit. I feel so blessed. The work at Susan G. Komen and through all my experiences, including volunteering and working for Francis House, left me with a real end of life, right? Like, how do we, you're still alive. How do we maximize that time? How do we as a community see people in that stage or continuum of their lives? What's needed? What's required? So that part got really fascinating for me. Also, my own aging and maturing, probably. And so, Alzheimer's Association, the position really fit my notion of when do we stop needing kindness, compassion, connection, autonomy? How do we depend on others and still have agency over our own lives? And so the space of dementia and Alzheimer's was really profound for that. And I also knew people and had contacts myself of people who had struggled or who'd lost that battle. And the impact of that is really profound.
What have you seen through working with all of the families that are affected by Alzheimer's and dementia? What kinds of impacts have you noticed the most?
Well, you and I have in common a friend of ours, Stephanie Crockett, who was our walk chair, the Walk to End Alzheimer's Syracuse walk chair. She is a daughter of a man who is her hero, who
Mhm.
she lost to Alzheimer's and dementia. She's incredibly close to her family, her mother and her nephew and her sister and her husband. They're all incredibly engaged with the fact that this wonderful man that they loved more than life, who was this force of nature, had to navigate at the end of his life Alzheimer's and dementia and all that came with that, all the struggles that came with that. But also now she's in a position 2 years after losing him to be able to use her voice to tell other people they're not alone, to explain some of what happened to her family, both the good and the bad, the challenges of navigating that, and the closeness as a result of it and the understanding of who people are in our lives and how they impact us. I mean, her story for me is phenomenal. And now she uses that platform she has, which is so because she's obviously a force of nature and loved and knows everyone to bring it to the foreground, to bring Alzheimer's and dementia to the foreground. It has still in our culture a lot of stigma and it's hidden and there's still some shame
Yeah,
around it.
lots of shame, I feel like.
Lots of shame.
Yeah, on both sides, you know? The
Exactly. The
there's
constituent, the person who is experiencing the disease, and then the family.
Mhm. There's so much such heavy themes that come up when you're
Exactly.
talking about this awful disease.
Mhm.
You know, and wow, going back to the Stephanie Crockett, she what a great brand ambassador. I mean,
I
who else would you ask for, right?
right, it was
She's
magic.
amazing, but every time I hear her talk about her father, I she brings me to tears just because I'm dealing with my father's illness right now, and we're about 7 years in. It's still something that I have a hard time talking about, and
Sure.
it's because these really scary, you know, you talk about dignity, right?
Mhm.
Talk about agency, autonomy. I mean, you lose all of that when you come down with this illness.
Terrifying.
It's and to put yourself in your father's shoes,
Mhm.
when you think of a father
Right.
figure, you think of the strong person that
Mhm.
leads all of us, and then all of a
Right.
sudden, they're not who they once were,
Exactly.
and it's just heartbreaking.
It's devastating for everybody involved. There's no I don't think there's any way to take away the grief and the
Mm,
loss of aspects of it. But as I'm sure you're aware also, there is great beauty in the connection that you have with the person's soul,
mhm,
right? So it's sort of it's two-sided. There's the fear. There's all the fear around to your all the things that are happening that you're losing as an individual, that your family is losing the roles that you've played,
mhm.
your identity, and how terrifying that can be. And unlike other journeys, it can be incredibly isolating. And I think that leads to such suffering. And I think you may have heard me say before the only thing I know to be true for sure is that suffering in isolation is worse.
It speeds it up.
It makes everything worse for everyone.
Hey guys, quick question. Has it been a struggle for you to get the type of attention and support you need in Central New York? Could you use some more growth minded customers that want to support local businesses? At CNY Women's Network, we specialize in helping businesses foster community through dynamic events and media opportunities. As the founder of the CNY Women's Network, I'm particularly passionate about creating opportunities that amplify the voices and missions of business owners in Central New York. Whether you want to host an event with us, advertise across our media channels, or get featured on the Cultivate CNY podcast, there are plenty of ways to partner with the CNY Women's Network. We have so many exciting events and editorial campaigns lined up for 2025 and are actively seeking sponsors that align with our mission and core values. So, if this is resonating and you are ready to take your brand to the next level, email us at media@cnywomensnetwork.com to learn more. All right, let's get back to the show.
By sharing our stories, our truth, by disclosing some of the challenges, it's not disloyal to the person who has Alzheimer's. It's not disloyal for the caregivers to talk about how difficult the journey is, but rather it's a way to invite in empathy and support and to provide an extension to others to know that this may be part of your journey, most likely will be, right? There's a whole sentence that you're either going to be a caregiver or you're going to receive care. All of us, if we're fortunate enough to age.
Hmm.
So it's part of our life's work to prepare ourselves for the times in our lives when we're not in necessarily the most powerful state, but we're still worthy
Hmm.
of dignity and compassion and kindness and love. And
Yes.
how to like traverse right over that landscape is none of us are experts at it. You know, we all fall and but I do know that doing it behind doors in shame or secret is not helpful. It all gets worse.
Hmm.
And so the moment you can step forward, I mean, one of the things I love about the Alzheimer's Association is locally here, all of our services are free. You can call a 24-hour hotline and you would talk to a mastered level clinician if you were in crisis and needed some answers and immediate support. They will connect you with a local chapter. So for here in Central New York, we have 19 different basically program and social workers who then will meet with caregivers or individuals with the disease to help you with a care consultation. What do you need? How can we connect you to different supports and services? What can you expect? How can we educate you? All of that is free for everybody who lives in Central New York. And so I really want people to know at the end of this podcast that you don't have to do this completely alone and in isolation. If you're a caregiver or an individual who's going through early stages of mild cognitive impairment or later stages, we can provide education and supports. So, and they're all free. It's all part of a New York State Department of Health grant that we receive and our fundraising that makes us available to support individuals. So that that's really critical for me is for people to understand that they don't need to do this alone.
Are there any other resources besides the Alzheimer's Association here in Central New York that particularly helps caretakers and provides spaces for more support and resources?
Absolutely. I don't pretend to do this alone. We do this in collaboration with a ton of other different, both private as well as public sector department of health and aging and various other. There's a lot of independent. I think you had Melissa Murphy on. She has a company that helps individuals with bringing nursing aid and support into the house so that people can stay. There's a variety of different supports out there. As far as Alzheimer's and dementia, we're probably the most accessible initially, even to get to more specialized services and needs to do a general consult. Always your care doctor, your physical, your yearly physical, talking to your primary care physician, reaching out, doing information, educating yourself about what's going on because 1 in 3 people over 80 will have some form of dementia or Alzheimer's. And as we all know, the number of people in early diagnosis with mild cognitive impairment and getting early diagnosis, it's increasing. So I think you and I were talking earlier about the fact that dementia and Alzheimer's is sort of the public health issue of our time, the way that maybe 35 years ago it was heart disease and it was cancer services about prevention about a healthy lifestyle, about screening opportunities, about treatment. We are in an era of treatment for the first time in the last year. We have had 3 drugs approved by the federal department to be able to be used for early stages. Everything is changing in this space for us. It's very exciting to me to think. I believe there's 135 different drugs in the pipeline currently.
When was the first drug for Alzheimer's dementia introduced?
It just a year and a half ago.
That's incredible.
Right.
That's
And then to get
insane.
Medicare and Medicaid to pay for it, right? So
Mm.
it's like anything else, it's been a journey. And also, I have to say, so health systems haven't been terribly responsive. They are now. They're working to get so because there wasn't anything you could do. If you went to your physician and you were able to get a diagnosis, a lot of people went undiagnosed, but if
Mhm.
you were able to, they didn't have much to offer you. And
Yeah.
so for the first time, they
Now
have
people are
things to offer
getting
you.
early diagnoses.
Exactly.
So how does someone go and get screened or
It's
diagnosed?
through your primary care physician slash you would probably be sent on to a neurologist. But what is probably a year away is a blood test. So for the first time now
Mm.
you have to have a PET scan and you have to do a lumbar puncture and
Okay.
there hasn't been easy screening and testing for diagnosis. We are a year away from a blood test that will let you know that you have plaque and certain things that suggest that you were on a journey to get
Okay.
Alzheimer's and dementia. And then we can start to treat many of those people with a drug that slows down the progression. 130 more drugs are in the pipeline. They're talking about there is the opportunity for us to figure out that they think 15 to 20 years before you have symptoms, you'll be able to have a blood test that lets you know that you are predisposed to that. And then you get to make choices about lifestyle prevention, brain health. You get to have perhaps you and your physician would talk about, drugs and treatments to slow down that process. So the landscape is going to change dramatically. It's incredibly exciting. It is not going to be what it looked like 20 years ago when and if you get a diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer's.
Yeah. And I mean, the statistic is like 1 in 3.
Wild,
That
right?
is heartbreaking.
And the idea that 40% of Alzheimer's, they believe, can be avoided through lifestyle.
Mm.
So some of the things that we're familiar about from like heart disease and cancer, exercise, sleep, diet is their finding is profound. If you replace the late one test just came out, one research study that said if you replace 3 times a week processed meat with a healthier form of protein, you can lower your likelihood of getting Alzheimer's by an additional 35%.
Processed meat, wow.
Processed meat, processed
Yeah,
foods,
processed
chemical,
food just in general.
the devil, right?
Yeah.
It just is.
And it's no wonder why it's impacting so many people.
Exactly.
right now. Yeah.
Exactly. Keeping your brain active, being social, movement.
As we age, I think a lot of us fall into work and working and, being of service to our family, right? But
Mhm.
it's over time we forget that we need a community too. We need to be supported too. Our sole in life isn't to support everybody else, right?
Right. And you can't do it without taking care of yourself. I mean, I think I've come to the conclusion, like so many women at some point, you know, I my cup was just getting so empty while I tried to be everything, like the
Yeah.
best professional I could be, the best spouse I could be, the best mother I could be, daughter, friend. And why I value those relationships and it's a privilege to be able to caretake for people and to provide support. If I don't balance it with some self-care, like sleep and good nutrition and some time to exercise, some time to be out in nature. For me, some spiritual care, just some time to be still because I can roll, right?
Mhm.
Like I can, like so many of us, like we could just keep going. And
We need to feel our feelings. That's part of the
yes,
deal, unfortunately.
it's really true. And I think being busy is one of the ways that I and so many other
Mhm.
people push down. Like depression is pushing down by
Yep.
definition, right? It's trying to ignore or limit or suppress
Mhm.
your feelings. We have to feel our feelings, right? You and I were talking the other day about there's a place where you have to be aware. There's an awareness of how am I doing emotionally? What am I feeling? You have to pause then in a non-judgmental space and allow yourself to feel it.
Yeah.
Right? And there are times and places it's like I can't do that. I can't do that at work every day. But if I don't allot for times for stillness, reflection, if I judge myself too harshly for my emotions, my physical health, I know compromises.
Yeah.
And I as I've matured and where I am in my life cycle, I kind of refuse to allow that to happen anymore.
Carving out the time and space for places with no judgment, and if you are a high performer that loves to
Right.
stay busy, that's okay too,
Hmm.
but so how I combat it is I literally have to schedule a breathwork class once a month,
Yep.
and I make jokes to people, "Yeah, I'm going to breathwork because I have to literally schedule time to cry."
Right. And breathe.
But that's it's funny when I say that, but I'm not judging myself for that.
Right.
I'm like, "You know what? This is where we're at right now, and if
That's
this is
right.
what I have to do, at least I'm doing it, right?"
Exactly.
Because so many people just I mean, I still
Ignore
could
it.
probably make more time for feeling my feelings,
Mhm.
but at least I'm doing breath
You're
work
being proactive.
where I
Exactly.
work out a lot. That helps a
That's great.
lot.
That's huge,
But
obviously.
we do need to release that stagnant or negative energy from the
Right.
body because I think that that has a lot to do with why diseases
I
like this
100% believe
develop
that.
over time. I mean, if you think about it, this being weighed down or experiencing depression because you aren't processing or
Mhm.
releasing
Trauma.
trauma that ends up sucking the energy right out of you. So
Right.
therefore you have no energy to do the things you need to do to show up for
Right.
yourself, making your own meals, working
Mhm.
out consistently. That all takes energy, right? But it's this constant trade-off.
It is.
So tapping into that consciousness, like you said, being aware of it. At first it just starts with a deep breath, I
I
think.
agree. And a stillness, right? A pause. If I There's the power of the pause in so many situations.
Yeah.
Just to, because I can get on autopilot and just go. And I really had to first identify places in which I stop, like you said, carving it out, and now giving myself permission to take time, even if I didn't schedule it, and
Mhm.
even if it's a few minutes, and do some deep breathing in my car before I go into my next appointment, or methodically making myself a cup of tea and just focusing a little bit on what I'm grateful for that day, being aware of what I'm grieving, right? Because I'm all like life is both, right? It is a celebration of the joys and the blessings, but it is also an acknowledgement of the losses and the grief and the sadness and the despair that is surrounding us in the world. And so just really giving myself permission was something I wasn't very good at when I was young, that I now practice intentionally because I know the compromise to my own health is too profound if I don't.
And I'm sure not only d is your health better for it, right? But I'm sure it actually creates space for more opportunity and
It does.
creativity
And relationships.
in
It
relationships.
really has deepened my relationships because it just has you end up vibrating on a whole different level when you're able to be more in balance. One of my mentors, Marianne Rafaro, who is the CEO of Hematology Oncology Associates, she's retiring this at the end of this week, wrote a book on leadership from the inside out, is the book, Leadership from the Inside Out. And it talks about just that. You have to have that commitment to yourself in your own growth, your own awareness, your own wellness in order to be a powerful change agent and leader in a way that you want to be, the way that women want to be, I find, which is they want everyone to elevate. But you have to include yourself in that journey.
You have to elevate your frequency first
Exactly.
if you're going to actually
Exactly.
accomplish that goal.
100%. So my work has been such a blessing, and it for me is it's two-handed. So my mantra is, beauty is balance, and I try to have meaningful, impactful work. I try to take care of myself and have fulfilling relationships, and I am very committed to supporting other women, particularly younger women, in their journey to become leaders and professionals in a way that I was blessed to receive a lot of help. And also, I had some, not so great experiences like a lot of us, and not wanting to be part of repeating that pattern or letting women know that they deserve something better than that. Both were great teachers, right?
Mhm.
Whether it was a blessing of like Marianne Rafaro or others, I won't name, who were challenging and didn't necessarily support or encourage or give me the tools in a way that I think would have been helpful, that would have supported me and my work and the overall mission of the organization or the overall purpose. So it's being reflective and then being very selective with my intention and my time and my investment.
Yeah. Let's talk about mentorship. I
Okay.
love I love where this is going. Are there any other mentors that have made a really big impact on your life?
So many. I'm so fortunate. I mentioned before faith. So I started my career in social work. Many of the organizations I worked for were previously volunteer run, whether that's a Catholic Charities or a transitional living services, they come out of the tradition of faith work.
Yeah.
And so there was a big focus on making sure that who we are as a society, in large part for me, is reflected in how we treat our most vulnerable persons and how we see their value. And so I had great mentors from John McCrae at Transitional Living Services. So many. There's Sheila Legacy, so many people who really helped show me how to put my beliefs and my values into action, right? I had a wonderful professor tell me once, who you are isn't who you say you are, it's how you spend your time, your resources, your financial resources, your energies. That really defines who you are. And so I knew that my work and who I surrounded myself with was going to be who I became. So that was a real gift, and putting myself around people whose values were in alignment with mine, who were impactful in ways that increased the vibration in the room in every way, right? Like, they full-heartedly embraced the work that they were identifying, the people in which they served, the people in which they were collaborating with, the partners, the community we live in. And so that became how I wanted to spend my time and how I wanted my children to understand work, whatever they did, could be a part of an extension of who they were, not separate from who they were.
If there's a young woman listening to this right now that's like, "You know what? I need to find a good mentor. I need a mentor," AKA me, because this is why
It's
I
pretty amazing.
actually started the reason why I even started the CNY Women's Network is because I hosted the first CNY Women's Summit.
Hmm.
And my reasoning for that was because I was in the market for a mentor
Right.
or just simply actively looking for to surround myself with like-minded women
Right.
because I was at a stage in my career where I had just realized how important that was, and you're right.
Critical.
It's it's not cliche, it's just the
It's
truth.
it's the truth. It may be the most impactful thing you can do is to surround yourself with and find yourself someone who's willing to invest in you. And by the way, the summit was phenomenal. I went last year and brought several colleagues. This year, I'm sending far more women colleagues, younger ones, and I'm not going so that I can send more of them. But it's really that opportunity to see the potential in collaborating in that way and supporting each other. It's a mindset shift, right? It goes from individualism, right,
Mhm.
into one that is, about community and connection and empowerment and engagement. And I guess I asked people for help. I got very good at saying when I was young, tell me about your story, because there was a lot to be learned from
Mhm.
individuals who came before me's story. And then share with me thoughts you have around priorities or areas to develop. And then I asked for feedback, and it was hard, right? Because it's hard to get your ego gets involved. It's hard not to get defensive, right? Like you just want to go, but I'm trying, or I'm moving
Mhm.
really quickly, or that was someone else's fault.
You wanna justify every
Yes,
single shortcoming, but you don't need to.
you don't
It's
need
okay
to.
to
It's
not
okay to
be
err,
perfect.
and it's okay to learn, right?
Mhm.
And I have learned so much more from my mistakes. They're actually blessings, not at the time, but they've made me grow. And so that goes back to vulnerability too, right? Finding someone where, and all that comes from trust. I do think you have to find someone you trust. I don't know
Yeah.
if you can be vulnerable with someone that you fundamentally don't trust. And you have to put yourself out there and ask. You have to trust your instinct. It's a muscle. Develop your instinct
Mhm.
and surround yourself with people who inspire you, right? Like if you're hanging out with people who are not getting it done in a way that, you know, makes your heart skip a beat, expand your circle.
I think one of the so I love the feedback piece because actually I was driving in the car, I think it was just last week, and I came to the conclusion that I was gonna ask for more feedback this year from everyone, from
Mhm.
people that work with me in a, team capacity to people that work with me from the client side. "Hey,
Mhm.
am I
Right,
doing okay?" People that I work with that I'm their client. "Hey, am I a good client or
right, right.
do I give
Tell
you a
me about
headache?"
me. Yep.
You know? It's so important, and I decided I'm like, "You know what? This is gonna be the year of feedback." And I feel
Mhm.
like that in and of itself is a great way to go and get
It
mentorship.
is. It is. And it's growth, right? But it is hard, right? I mean, I think, and there are healthier ways to give feedback. It starts with a trusting relationship. I always say with the women that I work with, because I work predominantly with women in human services, I am going to try and be clarity is kind. I'm going to give you, I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to tell you, I think this could have been done better. And I'm going to have a conversation with you in which we partner to figure out what that could be like. And where it's safe for you to tell me whatever part I might be unaware of, right?
Mhm,
So it's really about communication, transparency, having a trusting relationship, but soliciting what I need to do. I'll give you a great example. I had a wonderful mentor I was 33 years old and I was an executive director for the first time, and I had new responsibilities around budget and accounting and things that I hadn't spent enough time in school getting familiar with, and I really had to solicit help.
mhm,
And one of the feedback pieces from my board president at the time, who's now a good friend and mentor, was you need to not be held hostage by what you don't know. Go take a class and learn this because, your chief fiscal officer, you're you don't know enough about the topic, so you're sort of giving away your power and not communicating the way you need to be.
mhm,
This was me because I felt insecure about the topic, and she's like, you need to like not be held hostage by what you don't know, so go learn.
mhm.
It changed how I did it. And then, right, I took some basic classes for non-accounting majors. I was like, oh, now I can ask thoughtful questions, and
Yeah,
I feel confident sitting at the table asking questions versus frightened I'm going to get exposed for what I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, and it really plays into that imposter syndrome when we don't feel like we're
100%.
equipped,
Yeah.
and that really resonates with me because 'cause I'm just in this place where I'm
Right.
learning as I go,
Sure. We all
but
do.
it's sometimes it is so hard to know when
It
to
is.
ask for help.
And it's hard to have the light on you about something you don't know. Like I didn't
Yeah,
want to
you feel
highlight
like
what
it's
I didn't
gonna
know. Like then people were going to sort of dismiss me or minimize,
disqualify you. Like,
disqualify me.
"You're disqualified, bye."
Right.
Get out.
You just let us know that you're right, that
That's not gonna happen, though.
it's not gonna happen. It
Yeah.
really isn't. It it's so necessary for growth to admit what you need to learn about what you don't know, and to hear sometimes the hard things about how we're coming across versus maybe our intention. It can be difficult, but it also is a great opportunity then for me to get conscious of, you know, the power in which we all have to communicate and to
Yeah.
solicit like questions by others. I think part of it too is like how like when you're engaging with somebody or are you understanding this? Do you have any questions? Does something not resonate with you? Be creating a dialogue.
Yeah, and I think that until you've been in that position, it can be almost paralyzing because you don't know how
It's terrifying.
to address certain things, how to get your point across. It's really like it feels like you're walking on a rope
Yeah.
because there's so much at play
At
there.
risk and at play, right, and it's just it's frightening,
Do
right?
have
There's a
you
little frightening.
noticed because you work predominantly with women, do you
Mhm.
think that it's a little trickier to be
I do.
clear and kind? You know what I mean?
Well, they're so motivated, and maybe this is a bias on my behalf. I find the women that I work with so motivated to do a good job and
Mhm.
so invested, particularly in our work, because it is so powerful, right? It's people. It's We don't have people who work with us who don't care about our mission, who don't care about doing a good job for the
You're
most
definitely
part.
not working with women who don't like to work hard.
Exactly.
They
Right.
they know what they're getting
They roll
into.
their sleeves up. They
Yeah.
really want to do a great job. So they're quick frequently, particularly I'll say younger women, to feel injured by feedback. And so I'll talk a lot about that. Like
Mhm.
I'll say, "What are you hearing me say?" Because I'm not saying you're a bad person or incapable. I'm saying this particular behavior or choice, I think we could evolve.
Yes.
Right. So
Okay.
take it outside of it being so much a defensive reflection of my personal
Yeah.
shortcomings, and rather let's just talk about it as a context of a business choice, a behavior, a decision that we could make perhaps differently.
Mhm.
And so trying to distinguish between, I'm not telling you you're bad or wrong. I'm saying, might we do something around this particular work task differently that would have a better outcome? And let's converse about that.
Yeah.
And so, helping them manage their reactivity, right? Because we all get reactive.
So, I don't know, maybe I'm like I have a controversial take, but so when people get defensive,
Mm-hmm.
usually, and they feel like feedback is a personal attack,
Mm-hmm.
I think the real issue is the ego.
Sure.
I think it's the ego that ends up ruining everything for us, right?
Right.
And I'm not surprised when you said it's usually a bigger issue for younger women, and I think that as we mature,
Mm-hmm.
the ego gets smaller.
Right.
Like, I mean, honestly, like toddlers, they're all just little narcissists. They
Exactly.
think the world
Right.
revolves
Right.
around them.
Completely.
But until you experience some adversity and
Right.
you see that life isn't all rainbows and butterflies, you get
Exactly.
humbled and your ego is not as it's not at the forefront necessarily anymore
Exactly.
for you. I think that it's tough to be a leader and it's tough to give feedback,
It is.
especially when you've spent most of your life, constantly taking the temperature of people's reactions to you, being a people pleaser, which a lot of women
Yes.
resonate with that. But I also don't think it's your boss's responsibility to regulate
Agreed.
you
Right.
or your emotions. I think
Self-regulation. I've said that. I said that recently in
it's
a meeting.
our job
Right.
to show up to the workplace and not bring our our baggage into it.
Mhm.
And if you are struggling with that, it is a leader's place to get you the help you need, I
Right.
think. I
I
think
mean, I said that
that's
recently in a difficult conversation of like, I think the support you're asking for, you need to get outside of work
Mhm.
because when we get here, we have to do the work.
Yeah.
And I don't have the luxury or the leisure to always make sure that it's feeling the way you want it to feel, right? Like
Mhm.
there is an element of you do have to figure out for yourself how to do that. I also think culturally speaking, women are moved to shame more quickly.
Mhm.
Women haven't been given permission to show up, be bold, and make mistakes the way men unapologetically historically have.
Yeah, I mean, there's just never been as much grace for women to
Exactly.
be imperfect, right?
Exactly.
So when I'm faced with this, I do have a lot of compassion. Truly, one of the biggest superpowers I've learned as someone who wants to start a business or just be a leader is like catch yourself when your ego is driving the car
100%.
and
That's brilliant, by the way.
let go.
That's the goal
Let
of
go.
therapy.
That's just I mean, it's always comes down to the ego. When I
Mhm.
am acting out of line and when I'm choose to the decisions that I made maybe aren't totally in alignment with my values, it's always because the ego got in the way.
100%. That's partially the goal of therapy is to be able to have that self-reflection piece, know
Mhm.
what's happening for you, what's driving this, right? These decisions I'm making or my inability to listen to someone else or get so defensive. And it's that 100%. It's that your ego has taken, right? It's driving. It's not in the background anymore. It's not
Yeah.
in the back.
You are
We
in
all
fight or
struggle.
flight,
Yes.
and that your ego is telling you you need to fight.
Yes.
I think there's such an art to understanding just how to communicate feedback and address conflict. And
Yes.
this is, I think, the type of mentorship I'm seeking because I have spent most of my life avoiding conflict and not necessarily, yes, people pleasing, but I think my favorite form of coping through certain situations was fawning, which is
Hmm.
a lot of women do
A lot of
this.
women.
Now that I'm building a brand, I'm like, I can't afford to fawn anymore.
Correct.
If I want this to be mine and I gotta take some ownership here and be a
And be
big
unapologetic.
just be a big girl and
Yep.
you gotta communicate.
Yep.
So communicating for me has been hard.
That's great. And it works, by the way. It's a success model to go through that struggle of figuring out what unhealthy coping mechanisms are you using that are preventing you from reaching your potential,
Mhm.
getting aware of them, pausing, and then deciding to behave differently and to allow for transformation or information to come in or education to come in so that you can function at a higher and frequency and that you can be more impactful and more effective.
Mhm.
So that's the goal, right? And that's for all of us, wherever we are. But it's a process, to your point, right? I'm more comfortable at this point in my career standing in my own 2 feet and accepting I am I'm a complex individual like everybody. I'm not a snapshot of my worst day or my best day. So when I get a lot of accolades for something, that's wonderful and it can feel good, but I'm not there every day. That's not how I function every
Mhm.
day. And I've made mistakes and errors and have obviously used poor judgment like all of us before, but that's not me every day either. That was, I need to be able to forgive myself for that, learn from it, incorporate it into my story. And know that for the most part, I'm a good human being who tries to do my best, who needs to learn more than than I want to acknowledge on a given basis. And I try to be very intentional with my behaviors being in alignment with my values and then accepting that, you know what, there's going to be friction and that's okay. That
Mhm.
conflict and that friction is where the growth and where the change comes from. I don't want to eliminate friction. I want to have difficult conversations. I want to know that I'm going to survive difficult conversations and that I don't have to get defensive and
Mhm.
hurt someone else to do it. I mean, they're responsible for their own response, but my intention is never to hurt someone else with it. It's to communicate clearly.
It's a hard pill to swallow when you realize that you're never gonna be able to control how people react to
Correct.
you. At the end of the day, you gotta it's business, man. You gotta
Right?
stand on business.
Right. And I try to, like I said,
That's
it's a
important.
accountability and grace for
Mhm.
myself and for others. And there's a surrender that happens for me. And that's probably tied to my faith. And when I say surrender, I don't mean like give up, go down. I mean surrender, like let go. I am not
Yeah.
responsible for anyone else's decision. I am not going to have everyone like me. I am going to displease people. And that's okay. It's okay. At the end of the day, like, so one of the things I work on with individuals, like from a therapeutic standpoint, has always been know who you are when the lights are off, right? When nobody's reflecting back, oh, you're wonderful, you're smart, you're capable, you're a good mom, you're a good this, like just know who you are. I am a copy, I'm a child of God. That's how I view it, or a child of the universe. I am here for a reason. I am connected to everyone, and I have a right to be here as well as a responsibility in being here. And so I try to shut down the noise and know I'm just like everyone else. When I get really because I have this practice sometimes when I get really judgy or cranky, and
Mhm.
I'll go and I realize that I'm like, cranking at people. I'll try to say, I'll go through the morning and say, when I see someone and I don't like what they do, I'm going to say they're just like me. So the guy who cuts me off, rather than be like jerk, I go, oh, they're just like me. They're hurrying to get to work and they probably had to get a kid ready and the kid wasn't prepared and now they're worrying about walking into a meeting and they're just like me. Or when somebody is looks unprepared or tired in a meeting, I'll say, oh, they're just like me. They probably had to handle a caregiving issue the night before and didn't get the sleep that they needed, just to ground myself in compassion and to get to a place where I understand our connectedness to each other
Yeah.
as a community, right?
Being in the position you're in, you have to be everything to everybody, and it's probably easy to forget that you're a human, you know? It's
Just
like
get
it
on a
adds that humanity back into
humanity.
your inner dialogue, I
Hmm.
think. I can get in that place too, and I kind of I'm a very, like, introspective type of
Hmm.
person, so I'm constantly like, "Why did I think that?" Or, "Why did my brain
Uh,
go there?" Or, "Why am I angry right now?" And I'm just like, "What about this person or situation is triggering me?" Because it
right.
always comes back to something.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm not, yeah, your
But
triggers are
maybe
not my
it's, like,
responsibility. I
this
always say that.
judgmental part of you
Yes.
is like, "Well, I have a lot going on too, and I still
Hmm.
take the time to get myself ready and be prepared, and
Exactly.
how come nobody else can do this for me?" And
Right.
there's a sort of, you know,
Those are
it's
simultaneous
easy to get
conversations.
it's easy to go off track, you know? So it's
Very
important
much
to,
so.
yeah, ground yourself in that compassion.
For yourself and for others, right?
Yeah,
And to your point, yeah, it is, and it's you get routinized in your thinking, right? Too, where it
you
like,
can ruminate,
oh
yeah.
my goodness, where it's just like
We
I
all
always
do
say,
it.
like, yeah, my brain is not a place you want to like. It's like a dark alley at night. Sometimes you don't want to go there because it can get really. And I just really using tools that I have in order to be able, because I want to be powerful. And I want to be unapologetic about being powerful. But I also want to be the things that I am around being compassionate and being vulnerable and being approachable and kind. And so that it's always that balancing act. And like,
Mhm.
so how do I do those things when culture tells me it looks like this, or where it's a struggle, right? Where the struggle is where the opportunity is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a balancing act,
It
for
is,
sure.
for sure.
So what are you looking forward to in 2025?
Ooh,
What do you guys have going on in the CNY community this year?
oh, there's so much going on. We're so excited. We're doing a caregiver conference coming up in May
Mm.
28th. We'll have over 300 people at the Embassy Suites. It's for people who are providing care for individuals with Alzheimer's, and it'll have a variety of, colleagues and collaborators there, and we'll have panels. And I'm really looking forward to education is so important around Alzheimer's and dementia. And so, really, what I hope for 2025 is that we remove some of the stigma and some of the falseness about like, oh, it's just a natural part of aging to get senile. No, it's not. It's cognitive brain decline. It's a disease. It needs to be diagnosed. It needs to be screened for. It needs to be treated. It needs to be prevented. And so we are on the cusp of changing how we think about dementia and Alzheimer's. And I really would love to see that become very visible and be a part of our dialogue. The way that my daughter at 3 would say, because she would see me on stage talking about at a race for the cure for breast cancer, and then she'd stand on our stairs and start pretending she was giving a speech and be like, I'm here because I don't want to see breast cancer. From the time she was 3, she talked about it. I didn't talk about it growing up. People didn't talk about it. I wasn't informed. I wasn't educated. She's always been educated about breast health. I want people in the next decade and 2 decades to understand and be transformed about dementia, cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, preventive wise, diagnostically and screening wise, and then treatment wise, and then understand the impact of caregiving on our community. We live in connection to each other. The impact on the economy as a result of caregiving is huge. The number of people who drop out of their positions because they have to take care of someone, or the cost to the because employers don't address that we have employees who are caretaking for children, grandchildren, and their elderly parent. I mean, there has to be some, that is part of what makes our community move.
Mm.
And we need to start to have dialogues and have greater understanding about what dementia and Alzheimer's is, how to prevent it, what to do about it when we start to show signs of it. even clinicians and physicians, primary care physicians, they got about 12 hours of education they'll tell you about Alzheimer's and dementia in their entire 12 years of education because there was nothing anybody could
Mhm.
do about it. Now that there are going to be things you can do about it from a pharmaceutical as well as other lifestyle issues, I think the whole health system is going to change.
Yeah.
Also get a diagnosis to be sent out of your neurologist's office with nothing. Like, okay, go home and get your affairs in order. Well, I'm still living, right? What do I do? How do I maximize my time? How do I get my finances in order? How do I talk about end of life with my loved ones? How do I put in maximizing my well being and health? How do I keep myself safe? How do I make sure all the things that we want to be part of those conversations for our community? We want to be part of the education for our community. Everybody in their workplace should have a 10-minute education on the 10 healthy brain habits and the early signs of Alzheimer's and dementia and what to do. And I drive people to the 1-800 number for the Alzheimer's Association 24/7, always available. All you have to do is Google it and go on and call. You'll get a master level clinician who will not only help you in that moment with a decision of like, my loved one's wandering. What do I do today? They went off to, they'll connect you with your local chapter and connect you to free services. So I want us to be available to people in 2025. Where I am in my career, I would like to see the women that I work with around me collegially increase their level of leadership and empowerment and autonomy and confidence, right? And confidence is just practice. You can't gain confidence unless you're given an opportunity. So you have to
Yep.
give people opportunities to try things that they're not great at first because they'll get great at it.
Hmm.
And that's really been important to me is really helping people build confidence because without it, I don't find people able to step up.
Yeah. Confidence comes with experience, right? So just opening more doors and
Right.
providing more opportunities for young women
Practice.
to get some practice,
Right.
learn as you go. That's
Right.
okay.
It's
We all
okay.
do it.
We all do it. Everyone's done it.
You go to school for 4 years, you're still learning as you go. So,
Exactly. You all do it.
yeah,
So really creating those opportunities rather than just going to my, but giving opportunities to colleagues and coworkers to really uh, professionally grow, personally grow, and encouraging them to do that. And to your point, we'll be fine. I'm not going to let you drown, but at the same time, go out there not feeling completely
it's
prepared.
okay. Yeah, it's okay. You don't have to show up and know everything.
That's right.
I
So,
love that you guys are doing the conference in May too. I
yes.
mean, not only are you going to provide so much education, which
Hmm.
will be so empowering, but you're going to give all of these people that are going through the same thing
That's
a
right.
space to connect with each other and
The most important
hopefully
part.
develop a community from there. So, so exciting. I
That part
love
is
that.
so critical. And next year's walk is November 2nd. It's
Mhm.
at OCC again. And we have another wonderful new chair. Stephanie Crockett is passing the baton to Susan Crossett. And so she's taking on the charge to be able to get our community engaged with coming out to the walk. I really want people to register and come out. It's free to walk. We love fundraising and development, but it's free to walk. It's really part about being a community in support of individuals and caregivers who are navigating this journey.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Kate, for
Thank
all
you.
that you do for the Central New York
Oh,
community. It was so nice sitting down and hearing your story and,
thank you.
you know, going back and forth a little bit about leadership. This was a great conversation. Thank
It's
you.
it's a privilege, and I have such great respect for you and for what you're doing, and you're just gonna continue to rise and all the people and women that you're gonna bring along with you. It's really it makes my heart very warm, and I'm very excited that you're here and part of this community.
All right, guys, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you for tuning in to Cultivate CNY. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you left us a review and make sure you're subscribed to the show. Speaking of the show, if you or someone you know wants to be our next guest on Cultivate CNY, you can submit an application. Just click the link in the show notes. And if you are a business owner that's interested in getting in front of our audience, we're looking for sponsors. So if you want to learn more about sponsorship opportunities, you can go ahead and shoot us an email at podcast@cnywomensnetwork.com, and I will take care of you there. That's it for now, and we'll catch you next Monday.